All right, let's go ahead and talk now about what we call the switch statement. Sometimes I've heard it called the case statement, but it's officially called switch. So what we're going to do is instead of having to type something really complicated, like let's say we have a let driver's test grade equal a B. So let's say we have, A, B, C, D, and F for our driver's test grade. And we want to give different feedback depending on what this is. Or perhaps we want to say what the percentage was or something like that. We could do it the most complicated way to do it, of course, is to do lots of if-then statements and if-elses. So I could do like if driver's test grade equals A, I could do I could give it different types of feedback. Hold on. Jeez, this mouse. Oh, look at that. That's funny too. I don't know if you actually saw that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a feedback. Instead of having to do console.log on each one, let's do let feedback equal nothing. So we're going to initialize it to nothing. Okay, so if it's an A, feedback equals that's excellent. Else, now if we want to do a B, we'd do else if driver's test grade equals B, we might say feedback equals that's above average. And then we might do an else if, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let me just copy and paste some stuff here. A C, that's average. I don't know if that needs a exclamation point. And then we can do else if driver's test equals D, that's below average. Maybe that does need an exclamation point. Maybe we all need to learn from our lessons. And then finally, else if driver's test equals an F, you failed. Try again. All right. This is a lot to type. Instead, what we can do is something called a switch case. But let's actually just test this to make sure this works. So that why did you not work? Did I save that, right? Yeah. Save. Oh, because I didn't actually tell it to do anything. And at the end, console.log feedback, right? And just in good form, I'm going to put my semicolons at the end, even though I don't absolutely need to. It's just good form. All right, so now I've tested it. Or I should say I saved it. Let's go refresh it. That's above average because if you remember correctly, I set it to B. So let's set it to D. Save. Refresh. That's below average. Okay. So I have all of these if-else statements, and they can get kind of, for lack of a better word, they can get kind of tricky the more complicated you get. And there's some times you might have a lot of these. You know, I can show an example where There's some JavaScript to figure out what day of the week it is. Is it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? That basically starts with a number, and then you have to set, based off of the number, you have to set the day of the week. This is a pain in the butt to do. So let's talk about a switch statement. So a switch statement is essentially, we do switch and then we put a statement in. In our case, we're going to put the statement in of what is the driver's test grade. Okay, we do our curly bracket. And now what we do is we put in the possibilities of the driver's test grade. In our case, we would type, the first one would be case, and it would be A. And we do a colon, and then we put in, I don't know what happened there, and then what we put in is what we should put. So feedback equals, that's above average. Oh, sorry, that's excellent. B is above average. That's excellent. Okay. And then we do, then we type the word break. What break says is, I've now achieved what I needed to achieve, and I'm getting out of this switch statement. So then we do case B. I do not know what's going on with this. I'm so sorry, guys. It just is putting a lot of stuff up here. Feedback equals, it keeps wanting to put the driver's ed status in there for some reason. Feedback equals, that's above average. I'm still excited for that. Break. Case C. Case C. Looks like I have to hit a space bar to get rid of that. Feedback equals, that's average. And again, semicolons. I had a student once who was a JavaScript developer, and he was pretty upset when I didn't follow all of the conventions that he used at his job. So I'm a little gun shy from not putting some of that stuff in. But again, as I mentioned earlier, JavaScript works because it's an overly forgiving language. All right, feedback equals, that's below average. Break. Case F. Feedback equals, that's a failure. Failure is not an option. Semicolon. Okay. Now on the last one, I actually don't need to put break because it's the end. At the same time, why don't I go ahead and put break on there? Actually, I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it as is. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. Let's start with F so we know that something's different. Go here. That's a failure. Failure is not an option. But if I switch it to an A, that's excellent, right? So what we have going on then is our case statement. Now, you're probably thinking, I don't see much of the difference. This feels a little more complicated. It's really not. There are situations that we'll probably get to, that we will get to this semester, where a case statement is probably the best way to handle conditionals, or the best way to control the flow of the program, set variables, etc. Because the final thing you can do in here, which is kind of like the generic else statement, is that I'm going to put break, is called default. And this is what happens. Oh my God. This is what happens when none of those conditions are met. Feedback equals. I have no idea what that means. So let's give them a Z. As our friends up north say. Let's give them a Z. So then I have no idea what that means. So no matter what value you put in here that's not one of the other cases, it will just default to that value. All right, so that is our conditionals and flow control. Let's start talking about loops.